Hello, welcome back into today's second video. We've already done the February month-ahead forecast, which you can find on the month-ahead forecast page. This video is just going to have a quick look at the next 8 to 10 days. We'll have a look at the GFS ensembles, which is just there, and then the charts going through the next 8 to 10 days. We'll have a quick look at what's happening with the stratosphere over the North Pole. So before you get on with that, just say about the ads. Just link to articles on the page that goes up. Have a browse through those widgets, click through the links if there's any articles that you're interested in. Thanks very much for doing that. So starting off with the GFS temperature ensembles for the next couple of weeks. Now the February month ahead forecast, if you've not seen it yet, we're going for a milder than average month, but not as mild as it has been through this winter so far. Certainly not a record-breaking mild month, and probably not as mild as it was in January either, and also still unsettled, a bit wetter than average, particularly in the first half. The second half perhaps a bit drier. And as we go through the month, the chance of colder conditions could increase. But overall, we do think that the temperatures will still probably come out a little bit above average for the month as a whole. So this is what the GFS temperature and precipitation ensembles are showing for the next couple of weeks. So this takes us into the second half of February. We actually go up to the 17th of February with this. We'll deal with the temperatures first of all. The red line is the 30-year temperature average. So the thick red line just there telling us where the temperatures would be on average at this time of year. You can see it's actually going a bit cold on average over the next day or so. So a little bit of a colder snap coming through for the rest of today and into tomorrow on the backside of Storm Henry. We go through to the end of the week, temperatures will pick up a little bit. And then into the weekend, we may see a bit of a cooling trend emerging again through into the start of next week. But you see from that, there's nothing definitively cold really showing up, nothing severely cold, just at times we bring down somewhat cold air. And I think that could happen particularly particularly over the next couple of days, and then again as we go through into the start of next week, we could bring a colder shot through. Quite what happens after that into the second week, then the middle part of the month, which is this area of the ensemble just here, rather uncertain. There's a lot of scatter in that part of the ensemble. So a few members do actually go really quite cold indeed, but several are looking very mild. I would think we go through to the middle part of February, probably still seeing temperatures going up and down with colder snaps and milder spells alternating. So we've got rainfall coming up as well. Not too much for the rest of this week, but we go through into the weekend. It's looking really quite wet and windy over the weekend. There could be some heavy rain and severe gales, and probably quite wet through into next week as well. A lot of precipitation spikes showing up there as well. Generally, it looks an unsettled period, really, as we run from the weekend through into the middle of into the middle of the month. So now look at the generic charts. Here's the GFS for Saturday. So I'll bring a band of, we'll bring a band of heavy rain across the country overnight Friday into Saturday. That's rain will still be lingering in the southeast on Saturday morning. It'll clear away. Then we'll have a window of drier, finer weather, but this little trough system just here could bring a lot of heavy rain in off the Atlantic through the course of Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, with very strong winds as well. And then we'll do it all over again on Sunday. So another system is actually coming through on Sunday. This one just here. Again, that could bring very wet and windy conditions across all parts of the country. So it does look a very unsettled weekend, I have to say, with a lot of wind and rain. As we move inside of next week, that low pressure pushes to the north of Scotland. It turns the winds into the northwest. Just follow the isobars back, the areas originating from Greenland and Iceland. So colder air digging in from the northwest through the course of next week, early next week I should say. And then we've got another area of low pressure just here on Tuesday. That's developing out to the west, and as this one runs in, it's actually coming in some quite cold air, so it is being diverted to the south a little bit as these colder winds start to push down from the north. So this is quite interesting. We've got low pressure diving down there and colder winds coming down from the north. On the northern side of that low pressure, which particularly is for Northern Ireland and Northern England on this particular run of the GFS, but at this stage it could be anywhere because it's over a week away. But on the northern side of that low pressure, if it came off like that, there would be a risk of snow. Otherwise, heavy rain on the southern side of that low pressure. That clears away, and we go through into day 10, bringing yet another area of low pressure through. So it really is an Atlantic onslaught, this, from the weekend into next week. It looks very, very unsettled indeed. And all the time, Scotland looks quite cold, actually, staying on the cold side of the jet stream and the cold side of these areas of low pressure. East MWF is very similar, so a wet and windy start Saturday in the south, that will clear away, and then another system will come in through the course of Saturday afternoon and Saturday night. This one just here, bringing a lot of heavy rain across the country. Could be some strong winds down in the south with that one. And then as we go through Sunday into Monday, yet another area of low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. So really unsettled weather into the weekend with a lot of heavy rain to keep us on our toes. That low pressure clears away to the east as we go through into Tuesday, turns winds into the northwest, so this brings down our colder shot Monday into Tuesday. And then there's this area of low pressure again, that's on a more southerly track. With this one as we go through Tuesday into Wednesday. So that pushes across England and Wales on the northern side of this low pressure. This is for Scotland, Northern England, possibly Northern Ireland as well. We've got cold air, so there will be a risk if this comes off like this through the middle part of next week of snow across the northern parts of the country. Down in the south, probably just heavy rain. But remember, the position of this low pressure could be changed. It could be trending further north, could be trending further south, so it will be one to keep an eye on. We finish up on day 10, which is Friday the 12th of February, in this cold northwesterly flow that will bring in sunshine and wintry showers into the north and west. And finally, the GEM. That's very similar. Unsettled weather over weekend with low pressure really dominating, bringing in heavy bouts of rain and risk of some very strong winds at times as well. We go through into start of next week. We bring down this colder shot from the north and the west, and then bring this area of low pressure through during the middle part of the week. Now the GEM is placing this to the northwest of Scotland, so this is further north, and it means that most parts of the country with this would just get rain through the middle part of next week. That low pressure clears out of the way, and we get a bit of a ridge building around Iceland, very weak ridge by the look of it, but it is enough to start to turn the winds into the north in the second half of next week. And then we go through to day 10, and the chart looks like this, with high pressure around Iceland, low pressure trying to come in off the Atlantic. That's a bit of a battle going on there. And of course, those areas of low pressure push into that high pressure over Iceland, there would be a risk of snow up in the north. So I think it's going to try and get a bit colder next week. Read between the lines of all of this, and it looks very, very unsettled. It's going to be a really, really unsettled week next week. But read between the lines of it all, I think it's going to try and get colder next week. Because the Atlantic is so active and so buoyant, it may not come to much, but it's going to give it a go to get a bit colder, I think, as we go through into next week. That's sort of what I'm seeing amongst these shorter range models, that we may get a colder interlude through the course of next week. But as I say, the Atlantic is just so buoyant this winter and so dominant, but it may not be able to get itself into a colder start. But going to have a go at it, I think. Just quickly have a look at the temperature in the stratosphere over the North Pole. We've already had a bit of a stratospheric warming at 10 HPA. That's at the very top layer of the atmosphere over North Line. You can see on this chart from the JMA, the grey line is for trend, the trend in terms of the temperatures over North Pole in the stratosphere at this time of year. The black line is where we've been. So I've had a very cold stratosphere over the North Pole during the past few months, really since November. You see that we have had quite a big warming already taking place. This isn't a sudden stratospheric warming, but it is quite a substantial warming compared to where we've been with these stratospheric temperatures. Levelled off a bit now, but by the weekend I think we are looking at getting a bit of a sudden stratospheric warming at 10 HPA. We've got to move this down, of course, from 10 HPA into the troposphere, which is the key point. Doesn't always happen. But this is the forecast from the GFS model for those stratospheric temperatures over the next few days. So this is starting today. And this green area just here is already depicting where it's warming a little bit over the top of the stratosphere, with the blue cold area being pushed down more towards Siberia and actually over Europe and the UK as well, interestingly enough. But this green area is where that slight warming has taken place in the stratosphere over the North Pole over the past few days. So we run through the rest of this week and very little change really. In fact, it might cool a little bit in the second half of the week over the North Pole in the stratosphere. But you notice all of this yellow appearing across Siberia and also Asia. That's the start of the southern stratospheric. When we go through to the 6th of February, the red colours are beginning to appear there over Siberia. That's definite southern stratospheric warming taking place, and that becomes quite intense actually as we move through the 7th into the 8th. A big warming going on there at 10 HPA, penetrating into the very top of the North Pole. That does look quite significant, but it's just whether that's going to translate down, or I should say propagate down, and translate back into blocking. The idea, as I've explained, I've been talking about this over the past few weeks, is that the warming takes place in the top layer of the atmosphere, in the stratosphere, has to move down into the troposphere, and then if you get the warm bubble of air in the troposphere, it can set up a blocking area of high pressure. But these warmings don't always go down from the strat into the trop. So we're going to have to wait and see whether it does or not. But certainly in the stratospheric level, at the top level at 10 HPA, that does look really quite a significant warming that's going on there over weekend and into the start of next week. Coming back to weather for next week and the weekend, weekend next week, I think it'll be turning very unsettled over the weekend into next week. There'll be a lot of rain around. It's going to try and get colder as well, so there could be a chance of snow next week in the north, particularly. Whether this change to cold weather comes to anything, let's wait and see. The Atlantic is very buoyant at the moment. Right, that's it for now. Check out the February month ahead forecast if you would like to do that. There are going to be no videos tomorrow because I've got a very sad day coming up tomorrow. It's my father's funeral, so no videos tomorrow. Normal service will be resumed on Thursday. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.